Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Her husband, burdened with debts like a dog covered in fleas, spent his days lying on the couch in a constant state of depression, while his wife worked 3 jobs. But one day, while standing in line at the supermarket, the woman overheard a conversation that turned her life upside down. Dear friends, welcome to our channel. Thank you to each of you for your likes, views, and kind words. They give us strength and inspiration to create even more heartfelt stories for you. Be sure to leave a comment telling us which city you're listening from. It warms our hearts to see how many of us there are all around the world. Carmen tiredly opened the door of her one-room apartment. A familiar smell of stale air, dirty laundry, unwashed dishes, and cigarettes hit her in the face. Empty plates were piled up on the coffee table, the ashtray was overflowing, crumpled napkins were scattered around. Carlos was lying on the couch in the same position he'd been in that morning. Hey, she sighed wearily, setting the bags down by the door. Her husband turned his head toward her, but didn't get up or offer to help with the heavy bags. His gaze slid over her and went right back to the TV screen. "Oh, you're back," he said indifferently. "What was it today? The office, then cleaning somewhere." "Office till 2, Carmen replied, slowly walking toward the tiny kitchen. "Then cleaning at the mall till 6. Just finished washing dishes at the restaurant, right until closing." She turned on the kettle, her hands were shaking from exhaustion. The sink was full of dirty dishes Carlos had promised to wash yesterday. The pan on the stove still held the congealed remains of yesterday's dinner. It had been 3 months of this hellish routine, waking up at 6:30 a.m., working late into the evening, cooking, laundry, cleaning, while Carlos had been lying on that cursed couch for 6 months now, ever since he was laid off from his last job. She remembered how it all started 2 years ago. Back then, Carlos worked as a manager at a small firm. The pay was low, but they managed to make ends meet. Then the company shut down. That was the beginning of a string of temp jobs, layoffs, and new loans. Every time he said, "It's just temporary, it's the crisis, there are layoffs everywhere," and every time Carmen believed him. She took a second job, then a third. Recently, she even started washing dishes at a restaurant. "Carmen, bring me something to drink," came his lazy voice from the living room. Carmen clenched her fists until it hurt, then poured water into a glass and brought it to him. On the way, she tripped over his sneakers, left in the middle of the floor. "Carlos, maybe tomorrow you could try looking for a job," she suggested cautiously. "At least check online for openings." "Work? What work?" He waved his hand irritably. "I'm depressed. Don't you get it? The doctor said I need to avoid stress. And you, it's always work, work, work." "But the loans need to be paid," Carmen said quietly. "The bank has already called twice. They're threatening to sue." "Let them call," Carlos shrugged indifferently. "We don't have to kill ourselves. People used to live just fine without all this stress. What matters is inner peace." A rush of blood hit Carmen's face, but she held back. Arguing never led anywhere. It only made Carlos more upset, and then he wouldn't speak to her for days. "All right," she sighed. "I'll go to the store. There's nothing left to eat." "Buy something tasty," Carlos asked without taking his eyes off the TV. "Maybe a cake or a pastry. We haven't had anything sweet in a while. Life is hard enough as it is." At the supermarket, Carmen walked slowly between the shelves, counting every peso. Only the cheapest bread, discounted pasta, eggs just a dozen, no more. Meat was too expensive, vegetables would have to wait for better times, milk, margarine instead of butter. She stopped at the pastry section. The cakes in pretty boxes tempted her with their bright creamy roses. Carlos had asked for something sweet, said, "Life is already too hard," but one little box cost as much as half a kilo of meat. Her basket slowly filled with just the bare necessities. Carmen trudged toward the checkouts. The line snaked long and slow, people shifting from foot to foot, scrolling through their phones, yawning. Behind her, 2 middle-aged men were talking. One wore an expensive down jacket, the other a stylish leather coat. Their voices were loud enough to hear clearly. "Look at that woman in front," said the one in the down jacket, his voice mocking and dismissive. "See how beaten down she is? Her husband must have totally broken her." "Yeah," the other replied sympathetically. "She looks exhausted, like an old horse on its last legs. Probably working for 2 while he lies around at home." "Exactly. And she puts up with it," the first one said, baffled. "I don't understand women like that. Don't they have any self-respect? What else can she do?" The second man said philosophically. "She's used to being the servant. Probably scared to end up alone, thinks it'll be worse." "Worse?" The first man snorted. "Any life would be better than that grind." Look at her, she was probably a decent-looking girl once. And now? The second shook his head. It's painful to even look. Men who treat women like that are scumbags. Blood rushed to Carmen's face, her heart started pounding. They were talking about her. Her. She slowly turned around and saw the men quickly avert their eyes in embarrassment. In the mirrored surface of the ice cream freezer, she suddenly saw her reflection, dull, lifeless hair tied in a messy ponytail, a face without a trace of makeup, dark circles under her eyes from constant lack of sleep, an old jacket with a stain on the sleeve she couldn't even remember where it came from, and worn-out shoes with split soles. Yes, she really did look like an old workhorse, a worn-down, broken woman. Next, the cashier droned. Carmen stepped up to the register on shaky legs, mechanically taking the items out of her basket. Her hands trembled. The words of those strangers echoed in her head: broken, servant, no self-respect, scumbags. That'll be 1,200 pesos, the cashier said flatly, looking past Carmen. 1,200 pesos. Nearly half of what she had earned today from 12 hours of grueling labor. And at home, Carlos was waiting, asking for something tasty. Half an hour later, Carmen was walking slowly through the dark evening streets. Thoughts churned in her mind. When did she become this beaten-down woman? When did she stop being just Carmen and become an old workhorse? She remembered herself 5 years ago working in an advertising agency. She had plans, ambitions, dreams. She loved dressing nicely, going to beauty salons, meeting her friends at cafes. She thought about promotions, dreamed of starting her own business. Then she met Carlos. He was charming, knew how to talk, made grand promises, said, "Together we'll conquer the world." Where was all of that now? At home, her husband was still lying on the couch. The news was on the TV now. Another dirty plate had appeared on the coffee table. Apparently, he had found the strength to get to the kitchen. "What took you so long?" he asked grumpily, not even turning his head. "I'm starving over here." There was a long line, Carmen replied quietly. She walked to the kitchen and set the bags down on the table. "Did you get something good?" Carlos asked hopefully. "You know, would I ask a cake or a pastry?" "No." "Why not?" he asked, surprised. Carmen slowly turned toward her husband. He lay there, head propped on his hand, looking at her with obvious irritation. He hadn't gotten up to help with the heavy bags, hadn't asked how her day went, if she was tired, or why she looked so pale. All he cared about was getting something sweet. "There's no money for treats," she said clearly. "What do you mean no money?" Carlos snapped. "You work, don't you?" "I do," Carmen nodded. 3 jobs. From morning till night. And the money goes to pay off the loans you racked up like a dog collects fleas. Carlos sat up heavily from the couch, frowning darkly. "You're starting again," Carlos said indignantly. "I've explained 1,000 times it's just how things turned out. The crisis, layoffs everywhere, it's not my fault." "And looking for a new job, is that also not your fault?" Carmen asked. "I have depression," Carlos raised his voice. "Don't you get it? The doctor clearly said I need to avoid stress. I need peace." "Peace?" Carmen felt something tear inside her. "And what about me? Am I prescribed to work 14 hours a day, wash your stinking socks, cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner?" "I never asked you to work 3 jobs, Carlos defended himself. "That was your choice. You could have managed with less." "And what were we supposed to live on?" she snapped. "On air? On your endless promises to find a job tomorrow?" "Plenty of families live off benefits," Carlos shrugged. "It's nothing to be ashamed of. But you're acting crazy. You used to be different." Carmen looked at her husband as if seeing him for the first time. 2 years ago, when he was laid off, she had supported him, told him they would get through anything together. She took a second job, then a third. And he just got used to it. Got used to her working herself to the bone while he relaxed in peace. Something clicked inside her like a crucial mechanism finally breaking. "You know what, Carlos," she said slowly and clearly, "I'm going to spend my next paycheck on myself." "What?" he said, eyes wide in shock. "You heard me. I'm going to the hairdresser, and I'll buy something nice for myself. The loans can wait." Carlos stared at her like she had just announced she was flying to Mars. "Are you crazy?" he breathed, stunned. "What about our obligations? The bank will sue us. We'll be ruined. And what about my obligations to myself?" Carmen stepped closer. "Am I supposed to be a worn-out workhorse for the rest of my life? What are you even talking about?" Carlos mumbled, confused. "I'm talking about the fact that I'm not dead yet," she said firmly. "And I have the right to spend money on myself, not just on your endless debts." Maybe they're right, she thought. Maybe she really does have to pay the debts first. But then when will she live for herself in 10 years? 20? This isn't right, Carlos protested. We have serious debts. We're responsible to the bank. Responsible? Carmen laughed bitterly. And where's your responsibility? Where are your efforts to find a job? I told you I have depression. Your depression doesn't stop you from lying on the couch all day, she cut in sharply. It doesn't stop you from eating what I cook, wearing the clothes I wash. Carlos opened his mouth to respond, but Carmen had already turned and walked to the kitchen to make dinner. Her hands no longer trembled. Something new had appeared in her chest, not anger, not resentment, resolve. Tomorrow, she would go to the hairdresser. Let the whole world fall apart if it must. For the first time in 2 long years, she would live for herself. The next day, after that conversation in the supermarket, Carmen woke before the alarm. That new feeling inside her hadn't faded, it had only grown stronger. Carlos was still asleep, snoring and sprawled across half the bed. Carmen got up quietly and got ready for work. In the mirror, she saw the same tired face, the same dull hair, but today, everything would change. Where are you off to so early? Carlos mumbled sleepily as she made breakfast. To work. Like always, Carmen replied calmly. And breakfast? It's on the table. Heat it up yourself. Carlos lifted his head from the pillow in surprise. You're acting weird this morning. You sick or something? I'm fine, Carmen said firmly, pulling on her coat. I've just decided to make a few changes in my life. The workday dragged at the office. Carmen kept checking the time, her thoughts tangled. Maybe Carlos is right. Maybe I am being selfish. But when, then, will I ever live for myself? During lunch break, instead of going home for a sandwich like usual, she headed to the nearby beauty salon. Her heart was pounding with nervous anticipation. Hello, Carmen said timidly to the young woman at the reception desk. Can I see a stylist? Of course, the receptionist smiled. What would you like done? A haircut in color. I want to change. Everything. Got it, the girl nodded. Then you'll see Paula, she's our specialist for dramatic transformations. 10 minutes later, Carmen was sitting in the chair in front of the mirror. Paula, the stylist, was gently brushing her dull hair. Haven't been to a hairdresser in a while? She asked kindly. A very long while, Carmen admitted, lowering her eyes. At least 2 years. Maybe more. I see. So, are we thinking of something bold, or just a light change? Carmen looked at her reflection and remembered the men's words at the supermarket in Old Horse. Something bold, she said firmly. I want to become someone else. Completely different. Then I suggest a shortcut. The stylist perked up. A shoulder-length bob with highlights will freshen up your face and make you look younger. Is it expensive? Carmen asked uncertainly. The stylist quoted the price. Carmen did the math in her head, about a third of her salary from her main job. Normally, she would have declined, apologized, and left. But not today. Do it, she said with determination. 2 hours of transformation flew by, the cut, the color, the styling. Carmen was afraid to look in the mirror. What if it turned out awful? What if she wasted the money? All done, Paula announced with a smile. Take a look. Carmen slowly raised her eyes. A stranger stared back at her in the mirror. Soft blonde hair framed her face. Her eyes looked larger, brighter, her cheekbones more defined. Is that me? She whispered, her voice trembling. Her hands shook as she touched her new hair. Could this really be her? This woman with clear, confident eyes? It's you, the stylist laughed. And a real beauty. Your husband's going to be blown away. After the salon, Carmen stood for a long time in front of a clothing store at the mall. Doubts gnawed at her. Spending more money? That's completely irresponsible. But her feet carried her inside. Can I help you? A sales assistant approached, glancing at her old jacket. I need a dress, Carmen said hesitantly. Something nice. What's the occasion? Work? A date? A new life, Carmen answered honestly. The assistant looked her over carefully, taking in the new hairstyle with a knowing smile. Then this, she said, pulling a blue dress from the rack. This will look amazing on you. It'll highlight your figure and bring out your eyes. How much is it? Here's the tag, but today there's a 20% discount. About a month and a half salary, Carmen thought. She took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to apologize and leave, but another part pressed her lips together in firm resolve. Can I try it on? In the fitting room, she stared at herself for a long time. The dress fit perfectly. She looked feminine, beautiful, like she'd reconnected with the real version of herself, long forgotten. I'll take it, she said as she stepped out of the dressing room. She added a pair of low-heeled shoes to the purchase, another half-month's earnings. Carmen paid, trying not to think about the debts. On her way out of the mall, she heard someone call her name. Carmen? Is that you? She turned. Claudia, a colleague from the office, was walking toward her tall, confident, always impeccably dressed. Claudia, hi, Carmen said shyly. Oh my God, Claudia gasped. You look amazing. What happened? You're like a completely different person. Nothing special. I just decided to take care of myself. Good for you, Claudia nodded approvingly. It was about time. Hey, want to grab a coffee? I've got time. They sat at a window table. Claudia ordered a cappuccino. Carmen got a plain coffee. She still felt guilty spending more money. So, Claudia asked gently, why didn't you take care of yourself before? You're such a pretty woman. No time, Carmen sighed. Work, home, my husband, everything's on me. And your husband? Doesn't he support you? Not that he doesn't support me, it's just, there's never enough money. Everything goes to loans. Claudia frowned and set her cup down. Wait, your husband, does he work? No, Carmen admitted quietly. Hasn't worked for 6 months. So what does he do all day? Says he's depressed. Doctor told him to rest. Claudia fell silent, then asked gently, Carmen, doesn't it seem strange to you? You work and he doesn't? How many jobs do you have, anyway? 3, Carmen said even more softly. 3? Claudia blurted out. Good God, and he just sits at home? Well, yes. Claudia paused, then said carefully. Maybe it's not my place, but that doesn't sound very fair. But we're married. We're supposed to support each other. Support, yes, Claudia nodded. But support should be mutual. Right now, it's like you're carrying the whole family by yourself. But when he gets better. And will he? Claudia gently interrupted. Has there been any progress in the last 6 months? Carmen said nothing. There hadn't been any. It had only gotten worse. You know what? Claudia said quietly, I got divorced 3 years ago. I also thought being alone would be worse. But it turned out the opposite. Really? Really? Now I've got my own apartment, a job I love, and a man who works, earns, and respects me. Weren't you scared to be alone? At first, yes, Claudia admitted honestly. I cried at night, thought no one would ever want me. But then I realized better to be alone than with someone who doesn't value you. They talked for another half hour. Claudia shared stories of her new life, gently, without pressure, how great it felt to spend money on herself without guilt. Hey, you'll be at work tomorrow? She asked as they said goodbye. Of course. Then I'll see you there. And Carmen, you look like a real woman today. For the first time in ages, the road home felt short. Carmen walked, thinking about her talk with Claudia. Was it really that obvious from the outside? Had she really looked so beaten down? At home, Carlos was on the couch with a bowl of lukewarm soup. Oh, you're back, he said indifferently. You're late again. Then he looked up and nearly dropped his bowl. What the hell? What did you do to yourself? What do you mean? Carmen asked calmly. Your hair, your clothes, what did you do? I fixed myself up. Carlos set the bowl down with a thud and got off the couch. How much did that cost? Carmen told him the exact amount. You've lost your damn mind, he shouted. We've got debts, loans hanging over us, and you're wasting money on this. This nonsense. I warned you, Carmen reminded him. I told you yesterday I was spending my salary on myself. I thought you were just angry, Carlos said, clutching his head. Thought you'd cool off. How are we supposed to pay the loans now? We'll manage, his wife shrugged. Maybe you'll finally find a job. I have depression. How many times do I have to say it? Then be patient with the loans. Carlos paced the room like a caged animal, his face red with fury. This is irresponsible, he shouted. We're a family, we're supposed to make these decisions together. Together? Carmen laughed bitterly. And when did you ask my opinion before taking out yet another loan? That's totally different. How exactly? I took them out for the family for a new TV, home repairs. What repairs? Carmen snapped. You mean your new phone? The game console? Cigarettes? Carlos turned an even deeper shade of red. That's none of your business. I'm the head of the family. I make the decisions. The head of the family? Carmen laughed. You haven't worked in 6 months. That's hilarious. They ate dinner in silence that evening. Carlos chewed angrily, throwing sharp glances at his wife. Carmen ate calmly, watching her new reflection in the window glass. The next morning at work, her coworkers didn't recognize her at first. Carmen, the secretary gasped. Are you getting married again? I'm already married, Carmen smiled. Then you've got a secret lover, joked Isabella, the accountant. Maybe I'll get one, Carmen replied, surprising even herself. The co-workers exchanged surprised looks. This wasn't the Carmen they knew. At lunch, her boss Antonio Rodriguez, a silver-haired but energetic man in his 50s, approached her. Carmen, do you have a minute? His office was quiet and cozy, with autumn trees rustling outside the window. Take a seat, Antonio said. I want to talk to you about work. Did something happen? Carmen asked, worried. Quite the opposite good news. I don't know what's changed, but it's like you've come back to life. Yesterday, for the first time ever, you suggested a way to streamline our document system. Carmen blinked. She didn't even remember making that suggestion. I need an assistant, he continued. Someone responsible, with fresh eyes. I think you'd be a perfect fit. Assistant? Yes. The salary's double your current one. The workload is heavier, but you'd only need one job instead of. How many do you have now? 3, she admitted quietly. Good God, Antonio shook his head. 3 jobs. Then I think you'll really be interested in this offer. Carmen hesitated. Everything was happening so fast. I don't know. I'll need to think about it. Talk to my husband. Of course. Take the weekend, but don't wait too long. It's a great position. That evening, she told Carlos about the offer while he was eating dinner, eyes glued to the TV. Are you kidding me? He snapped before she could finish. Even more work? When will you be home? Who's going to cook? But the salary's twice as much, Carmen said. And it's just 1 job instead of 3. I don't care, Carlos cut her off. I'm completely against it. A woman's place is at home, taking care of the family. Then you go to work, Carmen replied calmly. You can support the family like a real man. I have depression. How many times do I have to say it? And I have exhaustion, Carmen said firmly. Exhaustion from your endless depression. How can you say that? Carlos cried. I'm sick. Sick? She smirked. Watching TV all day doesn't seem to hurt, nor does smoking. That night, Carmen couldn't sleep. Thoughts swirled in her head. Claudia's words about a new life, the job offer, Carlos's rage. For the first time in years, she realized she didn't care about his opinion, and that both scared and thrilled her. On Saturday morning, she made her decision. Antonio, she said, dialing her boss's number. I accept. I'll be your assistant. Wonderful, he said happily. When can you start? Monday. Then I'll see you then. Welcome to a new life. Carmen hung up and smiled. A new life, he'd put it perfectly. At home, Carlos was furious. He must have overheard the call. You accepted the offer? He stormed at her the moment she walked in. Yes, Carmen replied calmly. I told you I was completely against it, and I don't care about your opinion anymore. What do you mean? I'm your husband. A husband who doesn't work and doesn't want to work, she reminded him. So your opinion no longer matters to me. Carlos turned purple with rage. Oh yeah? Then don't expect anything from me. I'll lie around even more. I won't get off the couch at all. Go ahead, Carmen said indifferently, shrugging. I don't care anymore. And it was true. For the first time in many years, she truly didn't care about his threats. She was finally thinking about herself. A week passed since Carmen decided to change her life. Monday started with open war. Where do you think you're going? Carlos blocked the doorway as she headed out. To work, Carmen answered, calmly slipping on her new shoes. What work? You quit 2 of your jobs. Because I'm now the assistant to the director. And who gave you permission for that? Carlos stood in the hallway. I told you I'm against it. Move, Carmen said coldly. I'll be late. You're not going anywhere, he declared. Not until we talk this out. Carmen looked at him carefully. Carlos hadn't shaved in 3 days. His shirt was stained, hair uncombed. The room smelled of stale sweat and cigarette smoke. What is there to talk about? She asked wearily. You haven't worked in 6 months. I found a good job. That's logical, isn't it? What's logical is consulting with your husband first. He shouted. I'm your husband. Then act like one, Carmen snapped. Get a job. Provide for your family. I have depression. And I have one life. Carlos was stunned by her tone. Carmen had never raised her voice before. I don't even recognize you, he muttered, hurt. You don't recognize me, she corrected, because you got used to a silent doormat. But I'm not a doormat anymore. She stepped around him and left the apartment. Carlos stood in the hallway, mouth agape. At her new job, Carmen settled in quickly. Antonio turned out to be a patient and respectful boss. He explained things calmly, never shouted, always thanked her. Carmen, he said during lunch, you're doing great. No regrets about the decision? None, she smiled. On the contrary, I feel like I'm actually doing something meaningful. As you should. You have a talent for organization. It's a shame you didn't use it before. Just a month ago, such praise would have made her cry with joy. Now, she just nodded with gratitude. When did it happen? She wondered. When did she stop being thankful for basic respect? That evening, she came home to chaos. The apartment smelled stale and hopeless. Even the air felt heavy with unspoken resentment. Carlos had clearly spent the day stewing. Dishes were broken, the flower pot knocked over, couch cushions strewn on the floor. What happened here? Carmen asked, surveying the mess. My nerves couldn't take it, Carlos snapped. You pushed me too far. I pushed you? Carmen said in disbelief. For what? For going to work? For ignoring my opinion? Carlos shouted. I told you not to go, and you went anyway. And I did the right thing. And who's going to cook, clean, do laundry? What have you been doing for the past 6 months? Carmen asked as she picked up the broken pieces. I've been sick. Recovering. Carmen stood up, holding the shards in her hands. I see. So male logic means the wife works 3 jobs while the husband lies on the couch and still complains. How dare you? Carlos exploded. I dare, she snapped. And you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to dinner at Claudia's. I forbid it. And I don't care about your forbids anymore. Later that evening, as Carmen took out the trash, she was stopped by her downstairs neighbor. Carmen, said Dolores Sanchez sympathetically, what's going on up there? There was such a racket, the whole stairwell heard it. My husband's having a bit of a breakdown, Carmen sighed. What over? Because I got a job, a good one. Dolores, a sharp-eyed woman in her 70s, shook her gray head thoughtfully. You know, dear, she said, in my 70 years, I've learned one simple truth. A man who holds a woman back from growing doesn't want to grow himself. But he's sick. He has depression. Depression? The old woman scoffed. Watching TV and smoking cigarettes doesn't seem to bother him. Carmen, I've been through 3 marriages. I know what I'm talking about. A real man lifts his woman up. Carmen said nothing, letting the words sink in. Think, daughter, Dolores added gently. Life is short. Don't waste it on someone who doesn't value you. The next 2 days passed in tense silence. Carlos brooded, plotting how to regain control. Carmen worked, replaying Dolores's words in her mind. On Tuesday evening, she did go to Claudia's. Her colleague lived in a clean, cozy, tastefully decorated 2-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood. Come in, Claudia smiled. How's the new job? Great, Carmen admitted. I never imagined work could bring this much joy. And at home? Has your husband come to terms with it? Not yet. Today he trashed the kitchen, broke all the dishes. Claudia frowned as she poured tea. He trashed it? That's serious. Has he ever gotten physical with you? Not yet, Carmen said, but I'm scared. What if it escalates? Then you file a police report immediately, Claudia said firmly. No one has the right to lay a hand on you. They sat in the kitchen, drinking tea with homemade cake. The city lights sparkled outside the window. Claudia, wasn't it hard, Carmen asked, when you got divorced? The first few months, yes, Claudia admitted, especially financially. But then, freedom. And the loneliness? Who said I'm alone? Claudia laughed. I've been seeing someone for 1.5 years. And he doesn't mind that you work? On the contrary, he's proud of me. He says, independent women are far more attractive. Where did you meet? In a supermarket, Claudia chuckled. Ridiculously cliché, right? We started talking in line. In a supermarket, Carmen repeated. She remembered that fateful conversation between the 2 men. It all started there. By the way, Claudia added, if you ever want to meet someone, I could set you up. I don't know, Carmen said, flustered. I'm still technically married. Technically? Yes. But in reality, what's left of your marriage? At home, Carlos greeted her with suspicion. Where were you? He sniffed the air. You smell like perfume. I was at Claudia's. I told you I would be. And what did you 2 talk about? Work, life, what real relationships look like. I bet that friend of yours is turning you against me. No one's turning me against you. I can see everything clearly on my own. On Thursday evening, something happened that changed everything. Carmen was shopping at the same supermarket where it all began. She stood in a familiar line, thinking about the past week. Suddenly, a pleasant male voice spoke from behind her. Excuse me, are you Carmen? She turned. A tall man, about 35, stood beside her, kind, open face, thoughtful gray eyes. Yes, she said, surprised. Do we know each other? Fernando, he smiled. I'm a friend of Claudia's. She's told me a lot about you. Oh, Carmen said, realizing the engineer. Claudia hadn't exaggerated. You've really changed in a good way. Definitely. If you don't mind me asking, what was the turning point? Carmen thought for a moment. A conversation I overheard. Right here, in this line. Two men called me an old workhorse. Seriously? Fernando frowned. How tactless. But they weren't wrong. I was like an exhausted horse. And now you look like a beautiful woman who knows her worth. Carmen felt her cheeks flush. Her heart beat faster. She was a married woman, and yet why did it feel so good to hear that from him? Thank you. That means a lot. Carmen, if I may, would you like to grab a coffee? There's a nice cafe nearby. Carmen hesitated. Is this the right thing to do? But can she even call what she has with Carlos a marriage anymore? All right, she said finally. But just for a bit. The cafe was warm and cozy, with soft lighting, quiet music, and the smell of fresh pastries, the exact opposite of her home. They talked for nearly 2 hours. Fernando was a surprisingly thoughtful conversationalist. He talked about his work, travel, books. He listened carefully, asked questions. Why is it so easy to talk to him? Why do I want to share my dreams? She wondered. When was the last time Carlos cared about what I thought, if ever? Doesn't your husband mind you going out like this? Fernando asked. My husband minds everything I do. There's always a way out, Fernando said gently. All the way home, Carmen replayed the conversation. Why did she feel more seen by a stranger than by her own husband? Why did Fernando listen, while Carlos only demanded? At home, Carlos was furious. Where the hell have you been? It's almost midnight. I was at a cafe, Carmen said calmly. With who? With a man. Carlos went pale, then red. What? What did you just say? What you heard. I met someone interesting. You're cheating on me? He whispered. Not yet, Carmen answered honestly. But I'm seriously thinking about it. How can you do this? Carlos screamed. We're husband and wife. Husband and wife are supposed to respect each other, Carmen said coldly. You haven't respected me in a very long time. I provide for you. Provide? Carmen laughed. You mean with more debts? I'll find a job. I'll start looking tomorrow. It's too late, Carlos. I don't believe your promises anymore. Friday became the climax of the week. In the morning, Carlos tried to physically block the door. You're not going anywhere, he declared hysterically. We need to deal with this lover first. I don't have a lover, Carmen explained patiently. Yet? What does that mean? It means I'm a free woman and I have the right to choose. You're not free. You're married. To someone who doesn't value me. Carlos suddenly dropped to the floor in theatrical tears. Carmen, he sobbed. What are you doing? We're family. I love you. You love me? She asked in surprise. How do you show it? I'm sick. I have depression. Depression doesn't stop you from loving me if you really did love me. I do love you. So much. Then prove it. Go to work for me. I can't. I don't have the strength. Then don't stop me from living. That evening, Carlos played his last card. Carmen, he announced dramatically. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. What? She froze. I'll take my life. I can't live without you. Carlos, stop with the manipulations. It's not manipulation. He grabbed a knife from the table. Look, I'll slit my wrists right now. Carmen looked at him carefully. He looked worse than ever, unshaven, wrinkled clothes, red eyes. He was a caricature of a man. His hands trembled, his eyes darted around, and he held the knife awkwardly. Carlos, that's enough, she said calmly. You know this is just manipulation, and I won't fall for it anymore. I'll do it. I swear I will. No, you won't. You're not ready to die. You just want to scare me. Once, such threats would have sent her into hysterics. Now only fatigue. When did I stop believing his words? When did I stop being afraid? Carlos stared at her, shocked. The knife slipped from his shaking hand. You're supposed to talk me out of it, he mumbled, confused. Why? She asked, genuinely surprised. It's your life. Your choice. Carlos slumped onto the couch and sobbed like a child. You don't love me at all, he whimpered. And do you love me? Carmen asked softly. Or are you just used to having someone take care of you for free? Carlos didn't answer. He only cried louder. Carmen looked at him and felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just emptiness. When did that happen? When did I stop fearing him? The next morning, while Carlos was still asleep after his meltdown, someone rang the doorbell. Carmen opened it to find a woman in her 30s, confident, well-dressed, expensive suit, cold eyes. The complete opposite of a downtrodden housewife. Alejandra, the woman introduced herself. I need to speak with you and your husband. The apartment greeted her with the smell of stagnation and decay. Dirty dishes piled on the table, clothes scattered everywhere. Alejandra looked around the mess and grimaced. What's this about? Carmen asked cautiously. Carlos and I were in a relationship for a year and a half, the woman said bluntly, and he owes me 150,000 pesos. A year and a half. The words echoed in Carmen's head. So all this time, she'd been living with a stranger, feeding him, doing his laundry, feeling sorry for him, and he'd been laughing at her with his mistress. How could she have been so blind? Carlos staggered into the room, hair disheveled, face puffy from sleep. When he saw Alejandra, he turned white as a sheet. Alejandra, why are you here? Because I'm done waiting for your lies and empty promises, she said coldly. Carmen slowly sank into a chair, her heart pounding in her throat, her hands trembling. Tell me everything, she said quietly. All of it. Alejandra sat down on the edge of the couch and adjusted her skirt. We met at work. He started complaining immediately, said his wife didn't understand him, that the marriage was dead, and he was getting divorced in a few months. And when did he get fired? Carmen whispered. He wasn't fired, Alejandra replied dryly. He quit, said he'd find something better. Carlos flinched on the couch, opened his mouth. Alejandra, why are you? Shut up, the woman snapped. You've said enough already. Carmen, he lived with me for months, ate my food, spent my money. Did he tell you he was depressed? Depressed? Alejandra blinked. We went on vacations, ate at restaurants. He was cheerful and energetic. The air grew thick with tension. Each word Alejandra spoke shattered another brick in the wall of lies Carlos had built for years. Carmen felt something inside her finally break. Then I realized, Alejandra continued, he never planned to work. Or to divorce you. 2 women are better than 1. If I got tired of supporting him, he had a backup. When I stopped giving him money, he immediately lost interest and ran back to you, pretending to be sick. Now it all made sense, the timeline, Carlos's behavior, his sudden return to the role of the suffering husband. He had simply switched from one provider to another. And this bracelet, Alejandra took out a small box from her bag. He gave it to me, bought it with your money, by the way. Carmen took the box with shaking hands. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, exactly the kind she had dreamed of for her birthday 2 years ago. But they hadn't had the money. With my money, she repeated slowly. The money you earned working 3 jobs, Alejandra nodded. And he used it to buy me gifts. Carlos jumped off the couch. That's not true. I loved you both in different ways, but I loved you. Loved? Alejandra stood. You only love money and comfort. Carmen, woman to woman, run. Run now, before he ruins your life completely. And why did you stay? Carmen asked. Because I was a fool. Thought I could change him. But people don't change, they just learn to lie better. After Alejandra left, the apartment fell into heavy silence. Carmen sat in the chair, trying to process what she had just heard. All those months of backbreaking work. All those nights she collapsed from exhaustion. And he was living a double life. Carmen, Carlos said in a pleading voice. Let's talk calmly. I'll explain everything. What's there to explain? She asked without looking up. All those months of lies? I made a mistake, I slipped up. It happens. A mistake? Carmen slowly raised her eyes. Several months of cheating, that's a mistake? I didn't mean to hurt you, Carlos cried. I just got confused. You were always working, never home. I was lonely. Lonely? Carmen repeated. And you think I wasn't lonely? When I was washing dishes in a restaurant until closing, thinking a sick husband was waiting for me at home. But I came back to you, Carlos pleaded. I chose family. You didn't choose family. You got kicked out of the other one. That's not true. Then what is true? Carmen turned to him sharply. What truth have you ever told me? Carlos fell silent. Then suddenly, he began crying like a child. Forgive me. I know I was wrong. But we can fix everything. How do you fix a year and a half of lies? We'll start over. I'll get a job. I'll be a model husband. A part of Carmen still wanted to believe him, to give him one last chance. But a bigger part already knew this was the end. The final chapter of their story. You know what the worst part is? She said slowly. Not that you cheated. Not even that you lied. The worst part is, when Alejandra told me everything, I felt relieved. What? Relieved? Yes. Because for the first time, I realized I wasn't crazy. It wasn't all my fault. It's just that you're a liar. And a cheater. Carmen. And I realized something else too. I don't love you anymore. Not even a little. Don't say that. Give it time, and you'll forgive me. No, I won't. And we're out of time. She stood and walked to the hallway, putting on her coat. Where are you going? Carlos asked, panicked. To a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. Wait, let's think this through. Don't do anything stupid. The only stupid thing I did was waste the best years of my life on you. But we loved each other. Carmen stopped at the door. No, I loved you. You only ever loved yourself. But where will you go? What will you do? That's not my problem anymore. But I can't live without you. You'll survive. You'll find another fool willing to support you. You've become so cruel. No, I just stopped being a fool. The legal consultation was quick. The lawyer, an older woman with sharp eyes, listened without emotion. Infidelity is hard to prove, she said, but not necessary incompatibility is enough. As for debts, normally they're split, but if you can prove your husband spent the money on non-family expenses, you can avoid paying them. Do you have a witness? Yes, the other woman is willing to testify. Then it's straightforward. You'll be legally free in a month. The walk home felt endless. Carmen thought about all the years she had wasted, how much of herself she had sacrificed for someone who never appreciated it. At home, Carlos was waiting furious. You saw a lawyer? He snapped as soon as she walked in. I did. And what did they say? They said I'll be free in a month. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Carmen packed her things mechanically, answered Carlos's questions on autopilot. Her mind was already elsewhere, planning her new life, dreaming of spending money on herself, sleeping in peace. Everything she owned fit into one suitcase: a few clothes, documents, photos. So little left from 7 years of marriage. Don't go, Carlos begged. I'm begging you. It's too late. Give me one more chance, just one. You've had many chances. You used them all up. Where will you live? With Claudia for now. Then I'll rent a place. With what money? With my money. The money I earned honestly. Strangely, Carmen had expected to feel pain walking out of the home she'd lived in for years. But there was no pain, only relief, like she'd finally dropped a heavy backpack she'd been carrying for far too long. We're a family, Carlos yelled after her. No, we were never a family. It was just a maid and a freeloader. At the door, she turned one last time. Goodbye, Carlos. Take care of yourself. Carmen. But the door was already closed. On the stairs, Dolores was waiting. You're leaving, daughter? The old woman asked softly. I am. Good. Long overdue. I'm scared. Fear is good. It means a new life is beginning. At Claudia's, Carmen lay in a bed that wasn't hers, unable to believe she was free. No more lies. No more being blamed for someone else's failures. No more watching her money go to someone else's mistress. You did the right thing, Claudia reassured her. Now your real life begins. What if I regret it? What if I want to go back? You won't, Claudia said. You know why? Because you're not the same anymore, and there's no going back. On Monday morning, Carmen arrived at work. Her co-workers didn't recognize her at first. Something was different in her walk, in her eyes. A confidence that only comes from making a hard but necessary decision. Antonio, she said to her boss. Big changes in my life. I've filed for divorce. I understand, he nodded. If you need anything, just ask. Thank you. Actually, could I get an advance? I need to rent a place. Of course. And I know a real estate agent who can help you find something good. Later, Fernando called during lunch. Claudia told me about everything. How are you holding up? I'm okay. Yesterday was hard. Today's easier. That's good. Carmen, maybe. Would you like to meet again? Talk? I don't know. I'm newly divorced. People might get the wrong idea. What's wrong with two free people talking? Nothing, Carmen laughed. You're right. Nothing at all. Then I'll see you tomorrow. Same cafe? See you then. That evening, at Claudia's, they sat in the kitchen, sipping tea and eating homemade cookies. You know what's strange? Carmen said. I thought it would hurt, but it hardly does. Because the love ended long ago, Claudia replied. You just didn't want to admit it. But I saw it a month ago, when I looked at you. You were like a zombie, alive, but not living. And now? Now you're finally awake. That night, Carmen slept peacefully. No nightmares, no anxiety. Just deep, restful sleep. Outside, the first snow was falling, covering old footsteps. Soon, everything would be white and clean like a blank page where she could write a new story. Her own story. The story of a woman who had found her second wind. A week after her conversation with Alejandra, Carmen stood in an empty one-bedroom apartment on the third floor. Sunlight streamed through the clean windows. Outside, the snow-covered tree branches glistened. "This is a great option," the realtor said. "What about the neighbors?" Carmen asked. "Quiet. Mostly families and retirees." "I'll take it," Carmen said firmly. "Don't you want to think about it for a couple of days?" "No. I've learned to make decisions quickly." Standing by the window, Carmen reflected on the changes. "Just a month ago, I was afraid to spend a single peso. And now I'm renting a place with half my salary. Is it really this simple to just decide to start living for yourself?" They came to file for divorce on a gray February day. Carlos looked worn down, unshaven, in a wrinkled jacket. Carmen, on the other hand, appeared confident, wearing her new coat. "Maybe we should think this over?" Carlos tried to start. "No, I've thought it through. But we've been together for so many years." "Not together, Carlos. Just next to each other. There's a difference." "What about the debts, the car loan, the borrowings?" "They're yours. I never spent that money." The process took 15 minutes, signatures, stamps, a mark in the passport. 7 years of marriage ended with a few pen strokes. Carmen remembered their wedding, also in February. Back then, it felt like the beginning of a long, happy life, but in the end, it was a long lesson about how important it is not to lose yourself. "Goodbye, Carlos," she said without looking back. "Carmen," he began plaintively. "Goodbye," she repeated firmly and walked toward the exit. At work, things were going better and better. At the end of February, Antonio called her into his office. "I have a proposal," he said. "Deputy department head. Do you think I can handle it? You have what matters most, a desire to grow." "What would my responsibilities be?" "Quality control, project planning, working with key clients." "Interesting. I accept. But I'll warn you, not all your colleagues will be happy about your promotion." The first few weeks in her new role were tough. A banking project nearly collapsed due to a calculation error. Carmen didn't sleep for 3 days, double-checking every figure. When the contract was finally signed, Isabella from the neighboring department remarked sarcastically, "Some people sure are lucky." "Luck favors those who work," Carmen replied calmly. "And your personal life? Have you abandoned it completely?" "On the contrary, for the first time, I'm actually taking it seriously." Carmen shared her doubts with Claudia over lunch. "Aren't you worried things are moving too fast?" her friend asked. "Actually, I'm afraid of wasting time. I've already lost so much. And if work gets overwhelming, I'll manage. I've learned to stand up for myself now." "And what about Fernando? Are things developing?" "Slowly, for now. But he's different. Special." In March, things with Fernando reached a new level. After months of careful connection through Claudia, he decided to have a serious conversation. They met at a cafe after her shift. "Carmen," he said, nervously turning his coffee cup, "I've thought a lot about whether this is the right time to say this." "What's worrying you?" "My feelings for you. They've become very serious." "Fernando," she started. "Please, let me finish. I know your divorce was recent, and maybe you need time. With you, I feel alive. For the first time in years. Then let's give this a chance. No rush, but with honesty. Aren't you afraid? A divorced woman. It's complicated. What's complicated is living with someone who doesn't value you. And you. You appreciate every moment." Carmen looked into his gray eyes and realized this man wouldn't hurt her. With him, she could build a future. At the theater on their next date, the atmosphere was special. After the play, they strolled through the evening city. "You know what amazes me?" Fernando said. "How much you've changed since autumn. Back then, you were like a bird in a cage. And now? Now you're flying. Sometimes I'm scared. What if I fall?" "You won't. You have wings now." At home, Carmen thought, is it really possible? A relationship without tension or fear? In April, she hosted a housewarming. Claudia brought a bouquet of peonies and Dolores a homemade pie. "Wow," the neighbor admired, glancing around. "It's beautiful. And all for myself." "It took a long time to get here," Carmen admitted. "What matters is you made it. And this young man, is he serious?" "I think so." "Good. You've had enough experiments with freeloaders." "Dolores," Claudia laughed, "not all men are freeloaders." "Not all, but they're out there. Our Carmen needs someone reliable." Fernando arrived later with a bouquet of asters and a bottle of champagne. "Congratulations on your new home," he said, kissing Carmen on the cheek. Thank you. Make yourself at home. May I put these flowers in a vase? Of course. You're always welcome here. Well, Dolores whispered to Claudia. You can see it, he's one of us. Claudia nodded meaningfully. It was clear Fernando already felt like part of Carmen's new life. In May, something happened that Carmen had quietly feared: a meeting with her ex-husband. She was coming home from work when she saw a familiar figure near the building. Carlos had changed a lot, thinner, older, but sober and composed, holding a modest bouquet of daisies. Carmen, he called out hesitantly, can we talk? What is there to talk about? Carmen asked calmly. About us. Or rather, what I did. I want to apologize. Standing outside the entrance to her new home, Carmen thought back to who she had been a year ago. That woman felt like a stranger now. How could she have gone so long without noticing her own life slipping away? Are you working? She asked. Yes, as a stock clerk at a store. It's not much, but it's honest. I realized I need to start over from scratch. That's the right mindset. Carmen, I'm not asking to come back. I know it's too late. I just want you to know I've changed. I can see that, and that's good. Maybe we could call each other sometimes, like old friends? Carlos, we were never friends. We were husband and wife unsuccessfully. So this is the end? Yes, but I truly wish you happiness. He nodded and slowly walked away, leaving the bouquet on the bench. Carmen watched him go and thought, was this broken man really someone I once saw as my rock? Strangely, she felt no anger, no pity, just peace. In June, she moved in with Fernando. While packing boxes, Carmen found an old photo of her and Carlos young, in love, confident in their future. She didn't throw it away. It was part of her story, part of the path that led to real happiness. Fernando's apartment welcomed her with warmth and light, the opposite of her old home. Nervous? He asked, helping her unpack. A little. What if we're not compatible in everyday life? Then we talk about it honestly. I believe in openness. And I believe problems should be solved, not ignored. Then we have a chance. Fernando, what if I change? What if I become someone else? I hope you do. I hope you become even better. People should grow. Standing by the window in their new home, Carmen wondered, am I really ready for this step? Her heart said yes. With Fernando, she was home. The first weeks living together showed they were a good match. He didn't expect dinner at a set time, didn't leave things scattered around, didn't blast the TV. Simple things that once felt like impossible luxuries. At work, Antonio offered her another promotion, deputy director of the division. A serious role. What's the salary? Carmen asked directly. 50% more than your current one, plus bonuses based on profit. And the responsibilities? Coordinating all departments, strategic planning, working with investors. Sounds interesting. I accept. That evening, she shared the news with Fernando. Congratulations, he said, genuinely happy. I'm proud of you. Do you remember who you were a year ago? Look at you now. What if I can't handle it? You will. I believe in you. You're not jealous that I make more now? Are you kidding? That's amazing. It means we can afford more together. There was no jealousy in his eyes, no belittling her success, only sincere pride. In August, Claudia shared some news. Carmen, did you hear? Carlos got married. To who? To Alejandra. Apparently she gave him a last chance. And she went through with it? She must really believe people can change. Doesn't it sting a little? Claudia asked carefully. No, I'm happy for them. Everyone deserves a second chance. Even him? Especially him. So I was right, Claudia said. Sometimes, you have to let someone go so they can find themselves. You've become wise. No, I just learned not to hold on to what destroys me. In the fall, exactly a year after the conversation in the supermarket that changed everything, Carmen found herself in the same checkout line. Two women behind her were chatting. Look at her, see how she glows? So happy. Yeah, you can tell she's in love, and loved in return. Carmen smiled. A year ago, strangers called her an old workhorse. Now, she was a happy woman. At home, a candlelit table awaited her. What's the occasion? She asked in surprise. The anniversary of your new life. And what comes next? She asked, sitting down beside him. What do you want? I want to help other women. The ones who are where I was a year ago. How? Maybe start a support center? Fernando suggested. You know what it's like to feel like a prisoner in your own life. A support center, Carmen thought. A place where women could realize they're not alone in their struggles. A wonderful idea to help others find their second wind. Fernando, don't you ever regret getting involved with a divorced woman with baggage? What baggage? You mean life experience, strength? Well, yes. Then that's your power. You went through hell and came out stronger. Outside, yellow leaves were falling, the old making way for the new. You know what I've realized over the past year? Carmen said. That a second wind, it's real. And how does it feel? Free, deep, real. That evening, they sat on the couch, planning the future support center. A simple, drama-free kind of happiness. It was raining outside, but inside the house, it was warm and full of peace. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. You're the one who showed me what it means to be truly strong. And now we'll help other women understand it too. Reflecting on the journey behind her, Carmen marveled at how much had changed. A year ago, the future terrified her. Now it felt full of possibilities. The biggest realization of the year, the right to choose. The right to say no to what destroys and yes to what builds a new life. Carmen had found her second wind. And now, she knew exactly how to help other women start breathing freely too.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.